Happy Freaky Friday. You made it through the first week of 2024, and Ohio State has been busy. That is Bill Landis, Jeremy Birmingham, and I am Austin Ward. And yes, there is a new quarterback on the way for the Buckeyes. We did talk about it in Snap Judgments. They're brought to you by Buyers Auto, but spoiler alert, we actually recorded that about 5 days ago. So do we have new thoughts, Bill, about what Will Howard means to Ohio State?
No, not a ton. I don't think it feels more real, I guess, now that it's officially happened. I think I've come around on the idea that this is certainly an upgrade for Ohio State compared to what it currently has in the room. I don't know if I felt that immediately when I first heard the name Will Howard, which was like a month ago, at this point. But the more I've watched him, the more I've thought about the current situation. Like, I think this makes sense. I think it's an upgrade. I don't know that there was like a slam dunk, no doubt about it. You have to go get this guy quarterback in the portal. I think there were reasons to like or dislike pretty much anyone I think Ohio State could have gotten. And I think that's true of Will Howard as well, but there's definite upside there. So it's interesting. Like, I think when you look across college football and you see guys who are quarterbacks in other places that had like clear talent, but were having a hard time maybe like reaching their ceiling, and then all of a sudden they go play at other programs with better talent around them, and then unlock something different. And I think that's definitely on the table for Will Howard.
Agreed. I'm entering 2024 in a whole new frame of mind. My goal for this entire year is just to be positive. And so what I want to do before we dive into what Will Howard is and what he brings, I think it's really important that people take this moment and celebrate the competitive nature of someone like Devin Brown. And I really think that he needs to be applauded and celebrated. And we talked about it ad nauseum already. It seems like this move doesn't happen unless Will Howard is the presumptive starting quarterback. That said, I know Devin Brown is going to fight his ass off to win this job in the spring. And the fact of the matter is, he was told about this decision before the transfer portal closed, and he could have packed his bags and left, and he didn't. And I think that people are in this era want to see kids just say, "Oh, screw it, I'm out of here." And he deserves a ton of credit and a lot of applause for fighting this out and saying, "Hey, I'm not going anywhere. If you're going to come in and take my job, you better come in and take my job." And so I think that before we talk about new thoughts on that, I want to go back to old thoughts on Devin Brown, because I think that it underscores why the people in the program have raved about him since he got on campus.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to talk a big game in December and try and scare off transfer portal quarterbacks. What am I thinking of? Oh, yeah, Tate Martell. And then as soon as that moment actually arrives, you just jump ship. I mean, Devin Brown burned the boats, and he could have still left on Wednesday by midnight. He had the opportunity to do so and didn't. So he actually talked about betting on himself and is willing to follow through in the spring practice. I do think that is worth pointing out.
Do you guys think that all of the hand-wringing over Devin Brown wearing number 33 is going to be applied to Will Howard if he chooses to wear number 18, since that is Tate Martell's number at Ohio State, and it should be hung in Ohio Stadium as such, and no one else should be allowed to wear it at quarterback? I'm the guy that's worn 18 the last couple of years has been.
Yeah, why don't they just retire 18?
Yeah,
it has nothing to do with it.
Yeah, put Martell up there.
Yeah,
kudos to Marvin for overcoming the stench of the 18 and turning it into something memorable.
Why did this have to turn into a bash Tate Martell episode?
I
was talking about being positive, and then we're just crashing.
I love Tate Martell.
He was 10 for 10, man. 10 for 10.
I just don't know that 18 is the best quarterback number. I think it looks weird, and I know Peyton Manning wore it for a couple of years, but it's not my thing. I'm much rather have a quarterback wearing 33 than 18.
All right. Point being, yes, Devin Brown and then Lincoln Kienholz as well. I mean, they're informed of the situation. They decide that they want to stick it out through this, as we all assume that you don't go out and get a one-year veteran quarterback with a Big 12 championship and not assure him that he is going to be taking the first snaps in spring. So let's put all that aside. We did bring this up a couple times throughout the week, and who maybe Will Howard compares to. Am I shortchanging him or what if I say, Bill, that he's a better passing version of JT Barrett?
Oh, that's interesting.
With
No,
4 inches.
Yeah, he's significantly taller than JT.
Well, I'm not saying that he fits exactly in the body mold, but I think the style is reminiscent for me.
Yeah, I don't. JT at times when he ran the ball to me like felt like a running back with like the way he finished runs. I don't know that Will Howard does that, but Will Howard seems to be like a comfortable between the tackles kind of runner. Has good speed and like isn't super shifty, but is certainly willing to do it. And yeah, I can make more throws than JT made. So yeah, I think I can wrap my mind around that comparison.
All right, good.
I really do think that he's like a poor man's Josh Allen. I think that there are a lot of similarities. The size, obviously, the long gait when he runs. Josh is a higher level athlete and a bigger arm. But I think that it is sort of a fair comparison when you compare the physical nature of these guys. And
24 hours ago on the podcast daily, you were mocking.
The more I've been
comparison.
Thinking about it, I think that you could say like he's a poor man's Josh Allen. I think I could get behind that. I think that's the upside. I think that's the ceiling.
Well, how low is the ceiling if you're the poor version of Josh Allen? That's like, what does that mean?
Well, like, okay, so the ceiling, the rich man's Josh Allen is Josh Allen, right?
Yeah,
correct.
So
the poor man's Josh Allen is a guy that's like maybe his arm strength is 10-15% less. Maybe he's
Brock Osweiler is the poor man's Josh Allen.
Hey, no, take it back, Bill. Maybe the arm strength's 10-15% off. Maybe the speed is 0.2 of a second slower in the 40. But like, he's not a skinny dude. Brock Osweiler was a stick figure. Maybe like a Ryan Mallett.
Oh my God!
I'm just kidding. Mallett's arm was incredible, but that's all I could really do was just throw the ball through a wall. I like a lot about Will Howard's game, and I think it does translate really well to Ohio State. I don't care what the comparison is. It's been a long time since Ohio State's had a quarterback of this physical stature, that can move the way he does. I mean, if you have to go back to like Craig Krenzel, I think, as far as like the size comparison, but he can actually throw the ball, which is weird because Krenzel's son is like one of the best pitchers in the country and going to Tennessee, and like he can flat out sling it. So I don't know.
He's a rich man's Craig Krenzel. There you go. We figured it out.
Yeah. So he's like in the middle of that, right? I don't know. There's a lot to like, and I know people are looking at it and getting like, oh well, him and Colin McCord are the same player. Like they're not, and I just be positive. He's a good player. He's going to have way better weapons around him at Ohio State than he's ever dreamt of having in his life at Kansas State, and he's going to be coached by a quarterbacks coach in Ryan Day that is going to get the best out of him. And I really do think I think it's a huge pickup for Ohio State. I mean, they just picked up a starting quarterback, so you should be excited about it.
Yeah, I was thinking about that more on Thursday, and the point you made about the level of aggression and what this means for Ryan Day and managing the roster. Like, this is a pretty big swing. I do think that whether that's a conscious shift in mentality or not, or just an evaluation that maybe what was in the room was probably not going to get Ohio State to where it needed to be in 2024. I'm going to view it as like some acknowledgement that he does recognize the urgency of this offseason. And as Bill and I, suggested on Thursday, that still needs to carry over in some other areas in the program. And maybe it will. Maybe by Monday, there'll be a lot more clarity on the coaching staff or other things that are potentially in the works for Ohio State. And we'll just say, oh, Austin just needed to be more patient. And I would say, yeah, maybe that's true. But I do think there is an element to the point that you brought up earlier in the week, Berm, that like this is a big swing. You would not have blamed Ryan Day for saying, I trust my evaluations of the quarterbacks. I trust my ability to develop them. I trust my offense at Ohio State, and Devin Brown, Lincoln Kienholz, and Aaron Nolan were my guys, and I can do it with them. I think that would have been maybe a reflection of a more stubborn version of Ryan Day to not open up the possibility that maybe there had been some mistakes and he needs to correct them as soon as possible.
I'm in no way comparing Will Howard to Justin Fields. So let me be clear about that. But
This is a Freaky Friday.
Ryan Day is attaching himself and his legacy to Will Howard in a way that is similar to the way his legacy began with Justin Fields. Like if this doesn't work, Ryan Day's entire reputation and legacy as a head coach may very well be sullied beyond the point of repair, as we talked about on Thursday's Daily. So, like, it is a major, major play that he's making here. And I think what you just brought up is right, in that this is a de facto admission that I didn't get it right with Kyle McCord, and I could not go into the 2024 season with what we had because I didn't feel comfortable enough with it. And I don't think that a passive head coach and or a head coach that was too arrogant or too ego heavy to look beyond his own nose would have made that decision. So to me, like I think, and you have to take into consideration that this process with Howard has been going on a month, and this is not like they just made a phone call on Tuesday morning and we're like, oh, by the way, you're still available. Oh man, no one else wanted you. Like, this has been in the works for a while. So the urgency was there. It was just not out there.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think you're right, Bram. Like, we shouldn't compare anyone to Justin Fields because he's like another
or Josh Allen.
But I do think with a quarterback like Will Howard that Ohio State's offense will look more like the Justin Fields offense with the incorporation of the quarterback run and like probably like a lot of play action pass and like using the athleticism of your quarterback. That's part of what's interesting about this to me is like part of the sell of Will Howard is how good he is as a runner. And it seems like something that Ryan Day has been like hesitant to embrace. And not to say that like, you know, Kyle McCord should have been running the ball 10 times a game. I don't know that CJ Stroud should have been either, but it does feel like there was more room to do some of that stuff than Ryan Day ended up doing with all those quarterbacks outside of Justin Fields. And I think to get the most out of Will Howard, you have to do that with him. So that'll be an interesting, I think, like study of where Ryan Day wants to go with this offense. Because he could have gotten, I suppose he could have found a more pure pocket passer than Will Howard. I think with Will Howard, you are inviting the opportunity to open the offense up a little bit more, I think, than it's been open in terms of using the quarterback around the last couple of years.
And it's not just that either, because you also have backups in Devin Brown and Lincoln Keenholz who allow you to run the same offense that you run with Devin Brown. You don't have to, or with Will Howard, you don't have to make a systemic change to say, okay, well, this guy's out, so now we have to do something totally different. And I think that will provide a little bit of continuity for the entire offense as they figure out the depth chart in the order moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Plus, if you have TreVeyon Henderson circa playing like J.K. Dobbins in 2019, you add that to the mix, and then all of a sudden everything becomes the healthy version of TreVeyon Henderson is the closest thing we've seen to J.K. Dobbins in 2019. You have that element combined with the running element of the quarterback, combined with 4 5-star receivers. You can do a lot of different things, and I think it takes a ton of pressure off of Will Howard, provided that you have that version of TreVeyon Henderson.
Yeah, and you mentioned, so you put running backs in your story at ohiostate.rivals.com as something to consider in the transfer portal for Ohio State still. Now, that is pending TreVeyon Henderson's NFL draft decision, but the Buckeyes have now got a quarterback and they've got a tight end in this first week of 2024. Where else, Berm, are they already looking? And then we'll see where else they might need to look.
Well, I thought the most fascinating thing that happened on Thursday after the Will Howard announcement is that people immediately saw that his most recent Twitter follow was a new entrant to the transfer portal from Ole Miss, the best running back in the SEC. So I think, believe it or not, even if TreVeyon Henderson, I think Ohio State will be the favorite there. And I'm not, Bill, pronounce his name for me because I'm.
You think Ohio State's the favorite for Quinshon Judkins?
Quinshon Judkins.
If TreVeyon Henderson decides to go to the NFL, I believe Ohio State will be at the top of the list for Judkins. Here's why.
Sign me up for that. Okay.
That conversation has begun not because Ohio State initiated it, but because, from what I was told, Monsieur running back Ole Miss reached out to Monsieur Igbinosun, Ohio State, who he played with at Ole Miss a week ago, to say, hey, by the way, what do you think about this? So I think that there's some machinations there that are possible if Travion Henderson, who we've all thought is going to return to Ohio State, if something happens that spins that in a different direction, I do think Ohio State will be very much in the mix there.
Bill, did you think he was going to say they were going to be the favorite either way? I thought that's what he was.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought he was getting to.
No.
Okay.
There's no one's splitting time here. That's not going to be if he's coming to Ohio State or if Travion Henderson's back, that's the full-time starter. And then you have Dallin Hayden as your backup one way or the other, I think, heading into next year. But that's why Ohio State is the running back position was in the story I wrote on Friday or Thursday, because there's 7 days, 8, 11. Oh my gosh, 10 more days so these guys can announce. Holy moly, this could last a long time.
Sure it can.
A lot can change, but I think that it's obvious if Travion Henderson were to go to the NFL, you need to find another running back. So whether that's Penny Boone from Toledo or the kid from Miami of Ohio who was one of the best in the MAC, you got to get someone. And maybe you need two in that instance. Yeah, Travion. So
I think it's possible that you could have Travion back and still need to add some depth in that room.
I would love Penny Boone. I would, as a bigger back to complement what Trey and Dallin Hayden do. I think that'd be a perfect fit. But
I like the idea of finding just one guy who can fill the role of Chip Trayanum and Mayan Williams, like a more physical complement to Travion and Dallin. Yeah.
That may be the Toledo Rocket fan of me. I don't know, but I like that idea. Ohio State recruited Penny Boone out of Detroit Martin Luther King High School a couple of years ago. He went to Maryland, transferred to Toledo. Now he's a grad transfer, and he was one of the best running backs in the MAC. There's a kid at Miami of Ohio, like I said, whose name is escaping me, who's very, very good as well.
And then there was an intriguing visitor on the way. Did he get to Columbus on Thursday, Berm?
Yeah. From what I heard.
So I don't know, not the greatest maybe performance in the Rose Bowl, but a multi-year starter.
But enough about Alabama's quarterback. We're done talking about quarterbacks.
I wouldn't worry about that one. Bill, I think made a joke, but I don't know. What do you think about the possibility here with Ohio State and a guy who struggled a lot against Michigan at center on Monday night?
Yeah, so Seth McLaughlin, the Alabama center, was actually a pretty good player last year. You're right. I made a joke in Slack and I sent a text to our tech subscribers that was probably a little too hot and prisoner of the moment from what we saw in the Rose Bowl. Just was not a good game from him, and a season in total that was a little bit of a step back from last year. But he's a 2-year starter at Alabama. Obviously played against tremendous competition, has shown an ability to be a productive player. And I think Ohio State very clearly is in the market to upgrade its center position. I've seen some people say, oh, he can come here and play guard. He's never played guard. He only ever played center at Alabama. And I'm not of the mind that any interior offensive lineman can just play any interior offensive line position. I don't think it's quite that simple. Maybe if Seth McLaughlin came here, he could play guard. But I think with the decision that Ohio State made in the Cotton Bowl to take Carson Hinsman out of that spot and start Matthew Jones, moving forward now with, I think, a tremendous amount of uncertainty around that position, that they would be probably looking at this guy to come in and play center. And, he has to be better, I think, than he was last year at Alabama. But the good news is that he's already shown that he can do that. So I've cooled down a little bit from my initial reaction to him coming in. It's not the best optics in the world, I guess, for Ryan Day to bring in an offensive lineman who had one of the worst days of his career against Michigan, 4 days ago. Yeah. But I don't know that was the whole picture of who Seth McLaughlin is. I actually think he's probably he's a pretty good player.
Yeah, you're talking 25 career starts at Alabama. That's pretty good. And Nick Saban Saban doesn't oh, buddy, we're going to let you do this 24 times in a row when you stink. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, it doesn't happen by accident. You earn that, and he's played in a lot of big games. So I you only notice them when they're screwing up, right? And we all saw that on Monday.
Yeah.
So that's certainly the only time that I had ever heard or watched or paid any attention to who was playing center for Alabama this year. And certainly that caught attention. But I don't think that Ohio State wants to be caught in this same situation where, we've talked about maybe Josh Padilla would be the next guy into that battle for Ohio State, starting over again with, first-time starter into 2 years in the program, physical development, mental development, all those things that are required to play such a critical position. Like, even if you've seen the worst in this situation, that's probably a higher floor than what you're going to be dealing with banking purely on potential. I'm assuming that Carson Hinsman is no longer in the picture here. And that's Ryan Day made a point to say after the game, after the Cotton Bowl, like, we're not saying that his career's over here, or that he can't come back or any of those things, but it was so rough and that move was so dramatic that they made in the Cotton Bowl. I have a hard time seeing him returning from that setback, in which case Ohio State would be wanting veteran experience until or if someone like Josh Padilla could say, I'm ready to handle this.
Yeah, it may not even have to necessarily be Padilla, but I think it does come down to where you are or where you think you are with Padilla, with Luke Montgomery, who did play some guard and center in bowl game practices. So, like, they're experimenting. You have Austin Sareveld, who they're really high on at guard as well. Like, I don't buy the bring in McLaughlin and play him at guard thing either. I think if he comes in and he chooses Ohio State and he has a lot of options, I think it's to be the center. And that, again, positive, man. I'm positive. 25 career starts at Alabama is good enough to play at Ohio State. I don't care what we saw on Monday night, and I don't care even more than that what PFF says about his grades throughout the year.
I think one piece of context with that I again realized after I sent out the text that I sent is last year he was playing alongside 2 multi-year starters at guard, and this year he was playing alongside 2 like brand new starters at guard. And that's not to like excuse.
Is one of those worse than the other?
Yes, one of them is worse than the other. And I do think it's offensive line play in general, and it's probably more impactful for interior players. We probably don't take it into consideration enough, just like who you're playing with and how long it takes to kind of get comfortable with different people next to you. So I'm not saying that as an excuse for a dip and play, but I think it helps explain it a little bit, because I think we saw some of that with Ohio State's offensive line this year too, with like Donovan Jackson and Matthew Jones not rocking from the start of the season because everyone else in the offensive line around them was new. So, and obviously, if Seth McLaughlin comes here, everyone around him will be new to him, but he has at least, the opportunity to play alongside some experienced players.
I wonder if we could ask Justin Fry the next time we talk to him, if it's weirder / harder to have a new center and experienced guards, or an experienced center and new guards. Which way is worse?
I think you always want as much experience as possible at center, and Ohio State's like struggling to catch up because of the Luke Whippler situation. And even the first year with Luke Whippler wasn't perfect. Like they really had this thing.
He wasn't supposed to be the starter.
I know, they had this thing lined up, right? It was like boom, 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 3-4 years in a row, number 1 center in the country, number 2 center in the country. Like, everything is perfectly set up, and it fell apart for a variety of reasons. And it's some obviously much more difficult and challenging it for real life purposes than others. But like from the football perspective, it became a never-ending game of catch up, and they're not caught up right now. They clearly weren't, because they were still scrambling in the Cotton Bowl a week ago.
The sense of irony here is that McLaughlin was the replacement for Harry Miller at Buford High School when Harry went on to Ohio State. So there's a little,
wow, full circle moment.
Yeah, we'll bring around.
What else is on tap this weekend, Perm, as the transfer portal spins?
Here's the thing. There's not a lot of conversation about what's going on. We will get more news about that now that the portal is closed, and Ohio State can be a little bit more aggressive bringing in other players, but they're still waiting. This is still purgatory with Jack Sawyer, with JT Tuimoloau. Ohio State was trying to bring in Caden Woolard from Miami of Ohio, defensive end who had 9.5 sacks this weekend. Initially, that visit was planned. He visited Oklahoma, and he's probably going to commit to the Sooners, or maybe has already by the time this goes out on the air. So it's hard for Ohio State to sell transfers, especially one-year rental guys like Woolard would be, on the idea that, hey, come to Columbus and you might be our 5th defensive end. Like, that's a weird conversation. It's hard to get people to buy into that. I will say that, we talked earlier in the week after the Noah Rogers and Bryson Rogers transfers about Ohio State maybe looking in the portal. There was some discussion about another player on the roster leaving through the portal, and he did not. So I think that saves Ohio State and Heartline from having to find someone in there. You get that extra body that you wanted and to continue to develop there. So that makes that a little bit easier. But really, to me, like, if you guys are looking at the roster right now, is there any position more important, provided that Ty Hamilton joins Tyleik Williams and sticks around, provided Jack and JT stick around, provided Denzel and Jordan and even Lathan stick around? Is there anywhere that's more important to find 2 bodies right now than safety, if not for any reason other than the fact that it allows you to move Sonny Styles to linebacker like you need to?
Yeah, if you're moving Sonny, then yes, I think that's right. If you're not, which I think would be the wrong decision, then I suppose you don't need to. But I think it would make sense for everybody if you could get 2 safeties and move Sonny. Yeah,
I don't even know if they need to get 2. I mean, if they're able to retain Lathan Ransom and then you bring along Malik Hartford, you can move Sonny with 1 more guy and maybe 0. I mean, honestly, like if you have Jordan Hancock coming back, I think certainly you want more depth, but the only reason that safety becomes an absolute must-have necessity in my mind is if Lathan Ransom goes to the NFL. And if he does, you can understand why. He spent enough years at Ohio State and played enough games to make that decision. I wouldn't fault him for that at all. But with a group that could potentially still be having, Jordan Hancock playing in the nickel, Jihad Carter coming back, Malik Hartford with another year of experience, we'll see what else the rest of that depth provides, which there isn't a ton of it, but you should be able to move Sonny regardless. And I think that they should.
I think it sets up some very interesting conversations over the next month with Jim Knowles and the rest of the defensive coaching staff about properly aligning your talent in the spots that fit them best. And because I think we can all agree, at least here, that we think Sonny Styles will be better closer to the line of scrimmage and it'll allow him to fill out his body in the way that it seems to be naturally going. But I also think it makes entirely too much sense to move CJ Hicks down and have him as an edge rusher. And it's going to require some realignment issues and putting guys in positions that their bodies and their talents are actually suited for, as opposed to saying, well, this is all we have, so we need to play this guy back here. If you just say, we're not going to run 3 safeties this year, then this conversation is sort of moot because Sonny can just play down and you can rotate him and Jordan Hancock like you were in nickel situations a year ago. So I think that there's some important conversations that need to be had about the identity of this defense moving forward in order to really maximize what you have. Because if you don't bring in someone else at safety and you only have Lathan Ransom and Malik Hartford, then I still think you have to move Sonny Styles down.
We still have Jihad Carter too.
Oh yeah. Did you get what you wanted out of him a year ago? Did you get that's
no, probably not. No, but he was an okay player at Syracuse.
You've got Jaden Bonsu, you've got Jalen McClain coming in and Leroy Roker, but neither one of those 2 should be expected to play early. So I think you really need Jihad Carter or Jaden Bonsu to emerge, or you have to find someone in the transfer portal.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not suggesting that they take 0. If there's a safety out there that is interested in Ohio State and can play at a championship level, by all means do that. But I think it only becomes a necessity if they lose Lathan. I still don't have a good view on what he's actually going to do coming off that injury. And that's another piece that we'd like to find out as this month rolls along. As Berm said, still another longer than 10 days until they have to declare, right? Isn't it 17th of January? Is the deadline?
I think it's the 17th for the teams in the playoff or in the championship game. The 15th, I think, is still a date. I just think it sets up interesting conversations because we're talking all month about the more aggressive, more demonstrative Ryan Day. Like if there's an opportunity as the head coach to put your own stamp on the defense, which he doesn't generally want to do, doesn't it preclude him to be like, we're moving Sonny Styles, you guys figure it out. Like, I think that, like, that's what I would, if I was in that position, that's probably what I would think you'd have to do, don't you? Say, listen, we know you want him at safety, but sorry, we're moving him. This is best for everyone.
Well, somebody needs to do it, whether that's Ryan Day or Jim Knowles or Perry Eliano or James Laurinaitis. Like, someone needs to pound the table or have a vote, take 5 people. I don't know, figure out something, but they can't just like
for it.
I would, then I think James would win. Yeah. I think they'd be all right with that. Yeah. And Sonny gets to nominate, his champion and say, I choose James Laurinaitis to arm wrestle Jim Knowles.
Ooh.
Oh, wow.
And then
Jim's got that old man Philly strength. That he's got that vegan power.
Yeah, veganism I've heard is making a huge comeback in Philly.
Hey, you know what we should do? We should ask the next starting quarterback at Ohio State if he's a vegan. No one's ever done that before.
Let's not do that.
Pass. I think Bill does need to find out if he's a Birds fan, but and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I haven't everything in my power to get Will Howard on our Monday morning podcast. So I'm going to try my butt off to arrange that. So fans can figure out these things for themselves.
Wow, you're putting the public pressure on yourself by throwing it out there.
It needs to happen. I'm going to do everything I can to make it occur.
Okay, I have already sent him a message as well. So we are 2/3 of the way there. Bill can just send him go Birds, and then that'll be 3 for 3.
Good idea.
We'll be back with the podcast daily to start off week number 2 of 2024. Hope you enjoyed the shows this week as much as we enjoyed making them while we've all battled sickness coming off the Cotton Bowl. Hopefully Bill Landis will be feeling better by the next time we reconvene. But either way, thanks for joining us and bearing with us. For Bill and Berm, I'm Austin. We'll talk to you later. Have a great weekend.